Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway. The Safeway app features shopping for curbside pickup and home delivery, plus meal planning, pharmacy, and more. Learn more at Safeway.com. Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
Does it feel like just yesterday or a lifetime ago? Maybe a little bit of both. Today marks 5 years since the very first case of COVID-19 was confirmed in Colorado. It was a scary time that brought about a lot of changes. Today, we'll explain a few of those. I'm Bazi Kanani. Denver's spending thousands of dollars preparing its mayor to appear in Congress today.
One other thing that's at stake here is potentially Mayor Johnston's liberty.
Then, parents in limbo.
This isn't a want, this is a need.
What's at risk for their little ones with developmental disabilities? And from Colorado to the moon to the bank?
This is going to be the moment that opens up the start of the new lunar economy.
It's Wednesday, March 5th. Here's the news in Colorado today. Denver's mayor is scheduled for a high-stakes interrogation today. He's set to face Lauren Boebert, Gabe Evans, and other congressional Republicans who are upset with Colorado's immigration laws and with Denver's welcoming policies in particular. Denverite's Kyle Harris joins us for a preview. Hi, Kyle.
Hi, Bazi.
So Mayor Johnston will be testifying before Congress. For a little bit of background here, why is that?
So the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform has brought in Mayor Mike Johnston, the mayors also of Chicago, New York, and Boston. The committee says these are all sanctuary cities. To be clear, sanctuary city does not have a legal definition. It's more of a political term. The basic question, are local and state laws interfering with federal immigration policing? Here in the metro area, they are very likely going to be focusing on those apartments where there were armed men entering an apartment. Those groups have been tied by law enforcement to the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. And the whole idea here is, are these policies making the community less safe? Are they preventing the federal government from its mass deportation plans?
Now, we've heard that this could be a long hearing. Is it over after today, or could this get dragged out beyond that?
Well, the investigation started in January. We're expecting about 3 hours of testimony today, and it could be the beginning of a very long legal process. There could be criminal investigations, civil investigations, and ultimately this thing could take years.
Analysts often call these types of hearings just a bunch of political theater. So can you just break down for us what's really at risk here as a result of this hearing?
The big thing here is funding. This committee has said, they don't want a penny of federal money going to sanctuary cities like Denver. So Denver, in the 2025 budget, estimates it's going to spend around $99 million in federal funds. This is for everything from public safety, transportation, health, other big ticket items.
It's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. And one other thing that's at stake here is potentially Mayor Johnston's liberty. So he's going to be under oath. He cannot fudge the truth and he cannot misspeak. If he does, those things could be used in a court hearing. And Tom Homan, the immigration czar for Donald Trump, has already said he would personally arrest Mayor Mike Johnston if he interferes with federal law enforcement.
Certainly a nerve-wracking appearance. And everyone in this will be looking to try to score some big moments for media clips.
Absolutely. And people in the political sphere tell me no one comes out of these things looking good.
The mayor has been preparing. You and your colleagues at Denverite reported that the mayor's office has been paying for an outside attorney to help prepare for this appearance. Who is that lawyer and why is this notable?
Sure. The lead attorney is Dana Remus. She was the White House counsel for Joe Biden. The city's paying her firm up to $1,000 an hour and could spend as much as $2 million over the next year if this congressional hearing continues. It's also worth noting the city is between city attorneys right now. The administration doesn't want to overburden the city attorney's office in the middle of what could be a very consequential federal investigation.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you.
You can watch the hearing. It starts at 8 a.m. on denverite.com. And come back to Colorado Today on Thursday to hear what happened. Can you believe it's been 5 years since the first COVID case in Colorado? The pandemic normalized things like contactless takeout food and video meetings. It also changed how people track and respond to other diseases. Dr. Michelle Barron from CU Medicine says
measles is even much more infectious than any of the infectious diseases that we have.
159 people in Texas and a handful in New Mexico have been diagnosed with it now.
And we haven't seen measles and this manner or this degree of individuals that are being affected by it in, decades. And I know there's a whole crop of physicians that have never seen a measles case, myself included.
Dr. Anuj Mehta from Denver Health has his eye on the seasonal flu.
There was a solid week in my ICU where more than 50% of patients were testing positive for the flu in the ICU. And, more recently, the FDA canceled their meeting in which they were going to choose discuss one of the seasonal influenza vaccine variant for next year. This is when they start their planning session. We now have leadership that is very avoidant towards vaccine, and I think this is going to be a compounding problem. And the really grim statement that I'm going to make is that the changes in how we're funding research, the changes in our priorities, I kind of almost see as the beginning of a dark age of science, going back to the dark ages of just not trusting science, not believing in science, and letting anybody do what they want. And I think it's really bad for long COVID. And it's going to be in 10 years when we have other diseases that are out there or people questioning, hey, why don't we have new chemotherapies or new treatments for heart disease or lung disease? It'll be because we disinvested from research today.
For more from these doctors, check out today's Colorado Matters podcast. Thousands of parents in Colorado are waiting anxiously to find out if the state will continue funding treatment for their kids. It's for babies and toddlers with developmental delays. CPR education reporter Jenny Brundin has been talking with these families. So, Jenny, what's going on?
This affects about 11,000 kids. A memo from the department that funds treatment went out saying services would be cut because the department had to suddenly cut its spending this year. The legislature's budget committee found out about it and hit pause. So for now, families are still getting what they need, but they don't know for how long. The cuts would have meant interventions for the kids only 4 times a month. But, for example, Michelle Young told me her son, who has physical and developmental delays, he gets services 4 times a week.
We need them. This isn't a want, this is a need. It's a medical need.
Under those cuts, children who are blind with brain malformations could lose most of their home visits. Families on Medicaid, such as those with premature babies, would no longer be able to get nutrition services, like those from Kimber Takota, a registered dietitian and nutritionist.
To come home and still have to be on oxygen and to be on a G-tube, and they need therapists to help them learn how to eat and learn how to have movements like rolling over and sitting up.
Children on Medicaid would lose behavioral services. Cassidy Norcross's 2-year-old son has autism and used to have big meltdowns.
If he wanted something to drink, he couldn't let us know. He wanted water or he was hungry, and he was unable to understand what we were saying to him.
Norcross says she was scared and hopeless before therapists began helping her family.
What his providers have gifted us has really been the knowledge and the techniques so that we can help him thrive.
The memo on the changes was so sudden, even the legislature's top budget committee didn't know about it. At an emergency hearing last week, Representative Rick Taggart scolded department officials.
I find that incredibly insulting, not only to us, but to give providers 6 days before changing services? How do you do something like that?
Jeannie Stefanik with the Department of Early Childhood said the department didn't realize the budget issue until a few weeks ago. She cited higher than anticipated referrals, caseloads, and costs.
It's all come together to create this perfect storm.
Sounds like a lot to sort through. So, Jenny, what is the situation right now?
State budget staff are scrambling to try to find money to stop the cuts at least until the end of this fiscal year.
This fiscal year, which is only a few more months, not a lot of time for families to plan. And then, of course, Jenny, there's the issue of the next fiscal year.
That's right. State lawmakers say they need to find $1.2 billion to cut. And the other consideration is that families say if investments aren't made into these children now, it'll cost the economy and workforce more in the future.
Jenny Brundin, thank you.
Thank you.
A Colorado company is making history on the moon tomorrow. It started with this idea that in the future, people will mine things from space, bring them back to Earth, and turn a profit. CPR's Dan Boyce is here with more on how a local company is helping commercialize outer space. All right, Dan, so who is this local company and what are they doing on the moon?
Well, Bozzy, it's called Lunar Outpost. It's only about 8 years old now, and it's just this scrappy little startup of, say, a couple hundred space whiz kids. It started in a garage in Golden. They operate mostly out of Arvada now, and what they've done is build this robotic rover called MAP, which stands for Mobile Autonomous Prospecting Platform. So it's about the size of a suitcase, and it's attached to this lander expected to touch down on the moon tomorrow. And one of MAP's missions is to drive around on the lunar surface, scoop up a little bit of moon dirt, and then sell it to NASA.
Sell the moon dirt back to NASA. I would have imagined that NASA already has its own moon dirt.
To clarify, they're not even getting this moon dirt. They're buying a high-res photo of the moon dirt inside the rover for $1, and it's mostly symbolic.
The reason for the dollar transfer is to show a real monetary transfer for the space resources from a private company to NASA.
So that is Forrest Mayan. He's the co-founder of Lunar Outpost, and it sets a standard for how private companies will sell space minerals to governments and other companies back here on Earth. It's the first time this has happened in human history.
I would say think of it more like the establishment of initial gold and mining claims on the, new American frontier. And we really do see the moon as a new world. It's effectively the Earth's 8th continent. And this is going to be the moment that opens up the start of the new lunar economy.
Forrest is betting big on the fact that in the next 5 years, we're going to see just a bunch of these private companies sending their own missions to the moon and eventually other planets in the solar system.
In just the next 5 years. So this is something that's not far out there.
It's going to accelerate so fast that I think in a couple of years, something like this will probably not even be newsworthy.
Wow. Well, there is something that may be a little bit newsworthy. I understand that you personally got to be part of this mission.
Well, yep. And in complete and transparent disclosure, Bozzy, I do have a vested interest in this rover successfully landing on the moon because on the MAP rover is a little plaque with my name on it.
How cool, but how did you manage that?
Well, one of my best friends from growing up happens to be an engineer at Lunar Outpost, and so he engraved this small metal plaque, think of it like 2 postage stamps wide, with an outline of Montana where I'm from, and then me and 9 of his other friends from growing up, we got our signatures engraved on it, and so now it is on that rover, and so who knows, hopefully some space janitor in a couple hundred years will see my name as he chucks it in a lunar dumpster.
The jobs of the future, space janitors. This is such a fascinating topic. So many questions, but there is a lot of good information in your article, Dan, at cpr.org. We have a link to that in the show notes. Thanks for joining us.
What a pleasure.
Additional reporting for today's show came from CPR's Andrea Dukakis. Be sure to hit follow in your podcast app to get future episodes of Colorado Today. It is expected to be a sunny day along the Front Range today. Enjoy it before some more winter weather comes back tomorrow. I'm Bozzy Kanani. This is CPR News.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org. Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway. The Safeway app features shopping for curbside pickup and home delivery, plus meal planning, pharmacy, and more. Learn more at Safeway.com.